So her expertise primarily is in, she's a civil rights attorney who used to work for the American Civil Liberties Union. And she has moved more into for several years had a more scholarly role as a law professor rather than as a practicing attorney. And in all of this work, and now in her new work, working more with religious communities and religious leadership, throughout this she has been an advocate for the rights of prisoners, an opponent of mass incarceration, fighting for the civil rights and human rights of folks behind bars.
From your perspective, how relevant is this connection that Michelle did with the mass deportation and the incarceration?
Oh, absolutely. I think in many ways, I think the impact that both of these issues have on our society is inestimable. So, such a large impact on such a broad community. There's millions of people affected by both of these issues, and I think in both cases, both of these issues disproportionately affect persons of color. The Latinx population, for instance, being broadly affected by mass deportation and ICE and other organizations beginning to crack down on immigration is parallel in many ways to the way in which the mass incarceration disproportionately affects African Americans, but also Latinx community as well. So there's that racial issue, and I think both have profound economic connections as well. The fact, as was brought up with Professor Alexander, the fact that our economic interests, capitalist economic interests, are inextricably tied into mass incarceration. How much mass incarceration relies on its economic value to so many people. Corporations, private prisons, for instance, is very similar to the role that immigrants to our country play in our economy. The fact that immigrants are often willing to do work that other folks are not. The fact that many sectors of our economy depend very heavily on the hard work that immigrants put in. Without and I think a lot of folks in our society don't realize that economic impact. So I think there are a lot of parallels between these two.
So, ¿qué le pareció el evento?
Era excepcional, muy impresionante. Ella es maravillosa y su entendimiento de la justicia y que necesitamos hacer para organizarnos es algo que necesitamos en la comunidad y en todo el país.
Estar más en las organizaciones y ayudar más a las personas que están en la cárcel, por decir, cuando está hablando de sus libros, que los prohíben en muchas cárceles. Entonces, eso quiere decir que ella tiene mucho poder en lo que es realidad del país. Entonces, pues sería muy bueno el ayudar a las personas que no pueden obtener estos libros en las cárceles para poder buscar podría ser una guía para poder que estos libros entren a las cárceles.
For me, it would have to be how important it is for the youth to be able to really learn that they can make a big impact in the future of the incarcerations, and how they need to be proactive and really take a step forward into everything. And
so for myself, I was in a sociology class, intro to Soch, in last semester, but like how we talked about it is like the school to prison pipeline. Even with middle school, for me, like I actually had an in-school suspension for being excessively late within 5 minutes, and like back then we had like a homeroom, so if you're late to homeroom, that's gonna cause you to be late, and I actually had an in-school suspension, so which is kind of crazy. And having like those like kind of policies, or even in the school, and just like, oh, if you just breaking up a fight, you can get into trouble, and that's not, I think. And I know a girl was saying how like even in they have zero tolerance at her school, and like you can actually go to jail and get booked. That's like, yeah.
Anything that caught your attention? So that was very interesting topics, but something in special?
I really like what she said about the theoretical rights. How she was talking about she was working on doing the Know Your Rights, and how she kind of felt conflicted because a lot of the rights that, you know, certain people of color and people of different demographics you know, we're given these constitutional rights, but a lot of us don't really have those rights. We're not able to really have those rights work for us the same way that they might work for other people. So I really liked that she spoke on that and, you know, talked about the fact that she doesn't feel like, you know, that's working the way it's supposed to be working. And yeah, that's what really kind of caught my ear more, just because, you know, we hear about rights, you hear about the Constitution, you hear about people say that, but a lot of people don't talk about the fact that that doesn't work for everybody. That might not work for people that look like me. Maybe people that look like you, it might not, you know, those rights, they might not be able, you know, as respected as some other people. You know, we still get harsher treatments, but we, you know, they claim we have certain rights, but it's like we really don't. And so, you know, that's what really caught my ear.
I read the New Jim Crow about 3 years ago, and actually I didn't finish it. By the third or fourth chapter, it was too horrifying to believe is true. And I had to put it down, and I stepped away from it. This past month, I decided to reread the book because I knew Michelle Alexander was coming. And I felt that I really needed to learn what it is that she's talking about. And the prison system here in the United States locks up over 2 million people from their families, from their career opportunities, from their education opportunities, puts them away where nobody can see them, and says that they're failures for society, and then makes a profit off of these people who have been put into cages. And Michelle, Professor Alexander, she does an incredible job of exposing how and why this system continues to operate, succeed, and appear like a good thing for the United States and all the people that live here, all of its citizens. She also goes to explain how when you're out of that prison system and now you're freed, you might still be denied the right to vote. You might not be able to access housing, access jobs. Your family is now severed and things have happened and changed. So I think this is something that is completely inhuman, and in all Americans, especially white Americans, because white Americans maybe are not as aware, need to become more informed on how the system operates and continues to do what it's doing. And that's what I learned from the book.
And how do you see our community in this topic of incarceration? So are we, as Asheville, are we being progressive, or are we just being the opposite?
I wouldn't say the opposite. I would say, like, in every movement, right, you have individuals that are really on the ground, you know what I'm saying, doing the work. And then you have, then you have individuals that just do a lot of lip service. You see what I'm saying? Meaning, like, they just talk about doing things, right? So I feel like that's in every kind of movement. You have your pocket of those people, and then you have your pocket of the lip service people. I feel like here in Asheville, there's a lot of good work that has been done. Could it be more aggressive? Could it be addressing issues more? Yes, it always can be that way. But I do feel like, in a sense, just from my experience, that Asheville and the county can definitely do more with this unfortunate issue. And I will give this much credit to them. I think the start was by becoming informed and educated around the racial inequities that's within the prison industrial complex, as well as other entities. They did take a step, at least, with starting to get themselves informed. And who I'm referring to is the Asheville Police Department, as well as a couple of Buncombe County sheriffs have attended racial equity trainings. People that work within our school system, people that work within the courthouse. Yeah, they have taken those steps to getting educated